بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the show of Sada-E-Haq. I hope you guys are all doing good. Today's date is the 23rd of December. I hope all the families that are watching the show, that you guys stay tuned for today's show. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very good for those who have young children. So before even we start off and we go further, what I want to say and what I want to discuss furtherly is that before anything, I just want to share a little bit about the work that I have done here and the topics that I have gone through over the course of a year. It's actually funny, but I have hit 1 year, being on the show, and it was just amazing to see that 1 year went by so quickly. So before we go on and we start on today's show and what it will be about, we wanted to first and foremost discuss and see. Number one, I want to actually make an announcement that I work for a nonprofit organization called Access California Services. As many of you know, it's a nonprofit organization that serves the underserved community to provide social services, human services to those who are in need, and that includes people of every ethnicity, every background. It doesn't matter what gender they're from, what color of their race, how much they make. Our services are there to help provide services to those that are in need. But our biggest focus and emphasis is on the Muslim community. So for that, we are having a gala coming up. It's form of a fundraiser on February 9th. It's going to be at Anaheim Hilton. Again, February 9th. It's a Saturday. So if you guys can make it, please get in touch with us at accesscal.org. Let us know that you are coming. It will be a good way to show support and help us. So let's get started, and let me give you guys a quick brief view of what we went over, or what I have done in the past year. Some of the topics that I discussed here on my show was suicide prevention. Talking about the importance of suicide, how to work with your children, how to work with your family members, how to work with yourself in order to help prevent suicidal ideations and thoughts. The other thing I discussed was the importance of disability. What does that look like? Both physical, mental, and emotional disability, and working with your families. How an individual, even though they're stated as being disabled, how to really give them empowerment into moving forward in their day-to-day lifestyle to make changes and to improve themselves. There was another topic that I discussed was on exercise, the importance of exercise, and how that was important for us and for family members to know that children, they need to get time for themselves to go out and to physically discuss things with other family members, and to be able to be active physically, to join sports team, and how that's beneficial both physically and mentally for them, as alongside with parents as well. And I know in our community, a lot of parents, as they age, as they get older, they tend to stay home, and they get so busy and wrapped up around doing housework, doing outside work, working outside to bring money in, but they tend to forget that just finding some time for yourself and doing and going for a walk or going for a jog is much different than you just constantly just doing, even if you're doing labor work. It's much different because you're doing work for somebody else. What ends up happening is that you also want to be able to do work for yourself, something that you want to enjoy. I know a lot of females and a lot of the sisters, they always talk to me, or they'll say, I'm constantly working and doing housework. That's great. Power to them. But you have to remember that is work that is being put not just for themselves, but it's also for their family, for their kids, for their spouses, for their parents. So for that, I always say, well, let's step back a little and make sure that you're also putting some time for yourself for you to go out and to take care of yourself. Other topics that we discussed were fatherhood and how that is important in today's world, and why people are not seeing, or they're having you know, a good relationship with their parents, or specifically with fathers. Parents and fathers tend to not spend as much time with their children, and I talked about the importance of how research shows that, especially parents, and when I mean parents, I mean specifically fathers, playing an important role in a daughter's life, and how that improves the chances of her having a strong self-esteem, for her to be a strong individual growing up, and for her to live a life that is much more pleasing, more comforting, and more appreciative when a father figure is there to help and support her. And then we moved and we talked about choices and goals, and why that was important, specifically for those who are, you know, teenagers, youth, and youngsters. Part of the goal was to help them understand that it's very important to have goals, and with goals you want to be able to make the, you know, right choices of, you know, putting a structural plan for yourself to make sure that you will succeed later in life. One of the other important things that we have discussed and talked about was importance of time. So as I go down and I keep discussing, you know, the topics that I was talking or stating, so a lot of, you know, dear brothers and sisters, our viewers, if you have not got the chance for me to discuss some of these issues or topics, please let me know, and I can go ahead and do a repeat, or I can put one of my shows that I already, you know, that already discussed these topics, which I can replay for you guys. But before doing that as well, just wanted to let you guys know that, you know, today's show is really geared towards adolescents and teenagers, and obviously parents as well. So it's for everybody. So again, please, if you can, make sure that you know, you guys have, if you have kids, you know, bring them on and have them watch today's show, because today's show is going to be very important. And reason why I say that is that I'm going to go over the importance of abstinence. You know, what does that look like? And, you know, do parents actually sit down and talk to their children about abstinence? You know, having self-control, making those rational decisions, so that they don't make a certain decision that will cause a negative impact for the remaining of their lives. As again, you know, when they're teenagers, when they're kids, they have, you know, we tend to make, you know, choices, or we have made choices that are, you know, that has hurt us in the past, but we don't want to repeat it. So for that, if you can, you know, till I finish the list, please, you know, make sure that your kids are in. If they're not watching the show, have them sit, have them watch the show. If you think it's not beneficial, then go ahead. By all means, you can have them go do something else. But I guarantee the children and both the parents, you guys are also going to enjoy today's show as well. So just going through the list, again, discussions of, we talked about the importance of reading, you know, why that is important in today's world and in today's society. Again, reading is very important. It helps an individual intellectually grow, you know, and then further escalate their learning abilities. We had another topic of discussion on the importance of time and why time is so important. A lot of us think that time isn't as important as it should be, but in reality, we should realize that, you know what, time is of an essence, and it is very important for us to make sure that we're spending good quality times with close family members, with parents, with those that are close to us, and people in the community as well. So that's why I always tell people to make sure that you know the importance of time, what you put your time into, how much time you're putting into doing a certain task, how much time you are putting in terms of helping your family, your friends, people out in the community, doing some good community work. Those are important factors and matters that we need to put and take into consideration. Then I had a show on parenting, on how to work with your children. You know, it was more from a perspective of a parent, how to work with your children and why certain children do certain things in a certain manner. And then I also talked about how to work, or how do children, or how they should work with their parents. So it's a two-way street, where parents need to learn to understand that they have certain roles and guidelines and situations where they need to abide by, you know, Islamic law, and not just that, but also be able to respect their children in what decisions they make. Same way, children need to learn to understand, to respect their parents, and consult with them on matters that can eventually affect their lives dramatically. And then one of the other topics we talked about, and this was during Ramadan, was, you know, in the month of Ramadan, I talked, you know, Ramadan and mental health, and how that has a positive impact on your mental health. How, you know, the month of Ramadan, when you are fasting, when you are praying, how that helps you spiritually, and not just spiritually, physically, but it also ties back down to your mental health, and how it makes you much more aware of your task with, you know, with the Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how you can do things much easily because, you know, because of, you know, hunger, and your focus, you're more tuned to completing a certain task than usually moving around and thinking about different things, because your brain doesn't have that much energy to really focus on a lot of things, but it just keeps its focus on one thing. So it really helps you. So the way it helps you is that you actually learn to prioritize of how do you use your time during the month of Ramadan. Then we had a discussion on refugee mental health, and, you know, and how that was important for people. And we discussed, you know, the hardship of family members that are coming in to the U.S., that are coming in to Canada, to Europe, through, you know, hardship of, you know, sailing away through the sea, you know, through land, through mountain, you know, even through airplanes. We talked about the struggles that family faces, or an individual or children face. You know, there was statistics also proven that, you know, there's a lot of people that actually die in the process of coming from one country to the other. A lot of people come and they cross the country. You know, you tend to realize that they have post-traumatic stress disorder. There's an actual factual statistic behind that. You know, a lot of family members that do end up coming to the U.S., specifically that I've seen, are usually going through a very difficult time or an adjustment, because, you know, they left their home countries. You have actual well-educated individuals who were attorneys, doctors, engineers, who are now facing, you know, life in a very different manner, in a different situation, where they're starting off from basically from nothing. So it becomes a big, you know, big step back, you know, for them to rebuild their lives all over again. And then again, we talked about student behaviors, understanding teenagers and why it is important, and why you should understand teenagers and really work with them at a time where, or at a place where the teenagers are mentally. Why parents need to actually sit there and actually talk to their children or their youth, wherever the youth are, not where the parents are. Parents, what we end up doing is that a lot of times, a lot of us are, or most of the time, what we tend to do is we will tell our kids that you're supposed to, you know, do A, B, and C a certain way. You know, parents tend to want to mold their children a certain way, but again, it's not usually the best possibility, because you have to understand that, you know, a child needs time to develop. You know, physically, emotionally, mentally, they need time to, you know, to grow, and to be able to help them understand the process of life and how that is, you know, what is that like. So what ends up happening is that as parents, we put so much pressure on a child from the very young age, that as they get older, you know, they are, you know, they have different stressors, they are depressed, they're socially isolated from their community, not just community, from their own community, because usually I've heard, for instance, family members, community members talking about a certain child and telling them, why aren't you speaking your native language? You know, it's, the child is just sitting there puzzled, and it's like, well, you know, my parents aren't home, or my parents speak in English, you know, to me. So, you know, the child doesn't express that, but you can tell that the child there is blamed for something that he or she has no control over, you know, because that is usually the parents' fault for not being able to implement a language, the native language to their child, or let's say the child is not talking to anybody in their native language, because what ends up happening is that the family itself really becomes an enemy to the child when they tend to pressure or put more pressure on the child by saying, why aren't you talking in Pashto, why aren't you talking in Dari, and keeps pushing the child, and the child keeps, then the child becomes more resistant, and the child tends to back away and says, you know what, I don't want to do anything with any of the cultural factors, or any languages as well. So again, as I said, dear brothers and sisters, if you can possibly have your children watch today's show, as I hope it will be very beneficial, not just for them, but for you as well as parents, because today, as I said, I will be talking about abstinence, the importance of abstinence, and what is abstinence, and how can you best practice that, and making better decision, or let's say wiser decisions, so you don't have any negative implementations or factors that will haunt you later in your life. So again, adolescence and abstinence, and again, this includes, and you can put children in this category, you can put young adults in this category, teenagers, you all fall into it. This is something that actually is put down in a spectrum for teenagers, adults, younger adults, even adults who are in their college years as well. It's really important for them to learn this. So what I'm gonna do is today I'm gonna share 4 facts and 4 bullet points in today's topic. Number 1 is gonna be decision making, and number 2 is gonna be on what is abstinence and what does that look like, or what can you do as an individual to keep that parameter around other people, and not just for other people, but most importantly for yourself. How can you have abstinence for yourself? Number 3 is refusal skills. How can you say no to somebody? Number 4 is consequences of sexual activities, and what I mean by that is that once, let's say, you are to go ahead and break certain boundaries or certain factors that are broken, what are the negative aspects of the consequences for your sexual acts of being physical with somebody. So today we are going to talk about this matter. Again, for parents, if you think that this is a certain topic that you do not want your child to learn, or want your child to listen to, again, by all means, please, you can have them go ahead and do something else. But this is an educational presentation that I'm going to give today. If you guys want to make a phone call and discuss certain important matters to me or with me, I'll be more than happy to take that into factor. And reason why I came in with today's topic is that a lot of us growing up, we never got the talk of maturity with our parents, and that becomes a barrier. I know culturally and communicatively, usually what ends up happening is that when we are raised in Afghanistan or in Pakistan or in India, or let's say Lebanon, South Africa, or Asia, what ends up happening is that because we have the same religion, we have the same community, we have the same culture, and we have families all around us, what ends up happening is that because of haya, as we call it, is that a child does not talk to a parent regarding certain physical changes that they go through, right? When it's time for maturity level, when a boy or girl hits their puberty, parents tend to not talk to their children about those certain factors. And the reason why that is that they never learn to ask their parents those questions. And the parents, from a very and parents as well, they really don't talk to their children about these matters. And reason why is that even parents themselves never got the talk from their own parents. So what ends up happening is that because you have family members, you have community members that are there, what they tend to do is that they tend to educate you on those matter, without your parents being involved. So what happens is that you learn a lot of things from your own family members, from your own cousins, older cousins, your old nephew, usually from your older cousins. That's what ends up happening, is that they'll teach you, or your older siblings, about different factors or matters as you get older, right? They'll teach you on how things are. And what ends up happening is that parents already assume that my kids are going to know you know, what is right and what is wrong, or how are certain factors or situations or certain matters taken into matters into consideration. So what happens is that parents already think that, you know what, my child should know this already, because back at home, again, family members are there, community is there to teach them all that. Now let's move and come here. We come to the States. The States is very different. You know, a lot of family members are not, you know, they don't have the luxury to be all together, and you know that can be in fact due to different factors. Um, you can have family members, you know, scattered into different states, which happens. You'll see brothers scattering and sisters scattered into different states, different countries. Number one, because of war. Number two, as children get older, they have different job opportunities where they need to grow. One thing that I have seen in the community is that a lot of parents tend to use a lot of old mythology, and factors of holding their kids close to them, which is a good thing. But at the same time, they're hurting their children, which they do not understand or realize. And the reason why they don't is that their child does not, or their kids, as they get older, they don't tend to go ahead and grow. They don't tend to go further in life because they are in a place where they're not moving, or they're not changing, or they're basically, as we say, you know, there's times where we have certain communities where they don't even know, certain families don't even know, you know, the next door neighborhood, like where certain, let's say certain cities are, certain, like, let's say beaches are, certain parks are, because they never got the chance or the luxury to go out. So the same thing that falls into this matter is that certain parents do not allow their kids to actually get out of the house and explore different things. You know, the Prophet, peace be upon him, had said, you know, even if it means for your kid to go and study in China, you should let him go, boy or girl. You need to let him go. And you know, you know, this is one of the sunnahs of the Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he tells us that you should let your children go and grow, because eventually what happens is that I think parents, that's more of a fear. They have a fear factor of losing their children, or as they get older, they have a fear of becoming socially isolated. If a parent has a good rapport and a good relationship with the child, as they get older, what ends up happening is that yes, your child will go out and explore and grow and learn new things, because you know all the learning does not take place in the house. It takes place by exploring, by doing things at different places, going to different states, different countries, and that's how you learn. That's how you grow, and that's how you become. You know, you get to know more people. You know, you get to know, and you get to make and bring a lot of change into different places of the world. So that's what ends up happening with parents, is that they tend to fear a lot of that. But parents tend to forget that, you know, but kids eventually will, you know, kids do come back and take care of their parents. So I think that's a cultural factor that becomes a barrier in today's world, which I've seen a lot. It becomes it's a big cultural a barrier. But again, today, as I discussed, was decision making on how, you know, how we can talk about abstinence in today's world. Again, number one was decision making. So before we go on and talk about what is decision making, let's talk a little bit about, you know, some of the influencers of today's world on our children or on our youth. So to start off, let's go ahead. We've got the media. You know, we have social media. And that being said, social media, statistically, research has proven that there's roughly 11% of the 11% of the world is really addicted to social media, and you know that's pretty addicting. I mean, you have people that actually are addicted to their phones, where they can't get off of, you know, social media. You know, again, I did a talk on social media, on, you know, how that can be very damaging and dangerous for your child and for their brain and for their developmental stage. But again, you know, media is one. It puts a lot of influences on an individual and on a child as well. Again, you have television coming here. You know, me talking, you know, could potentially change or influence somebody in a good or a bad way, and it can go both ways. You know, you never know. You've got music. You know, people, youngsters listening to music, and that's also a form of an influencers, as we say it. Families, you know, you got friends, you got parents, you got siblings that influence you either to the good or to the bad. So there's both. You know, again, we're human beings. No human being is perfect, so we have good and bad. We always have to weigh it out. You know, religious organizations, going to cultural traditions, associations, and not just that, but social organizations as well. So again, dear brothers and sisters, like I said earlier, as I go further into this program, I'm going to discuss important matters and show important clips of certain situations. Like I said, you know, a lot of us, our parents, do not talk about matters of puberty, matters of actually when a boy meets a girl or a girl meets a boy, you know, how to, you know, how the interaction should be, or how to have abstinence. Or, you know, when two youngsters or college students, they meet each other in school, families don't have they don't have the capability to talk to their children. So for that, you know, I'm doing a show on that. So it's, again, I said, for those who don't feel comfortable to put their kids on to have their kids watch the show, it's totally understandable, but it is an educational seminar today that I'm going to give. Again, making responsible decisions. So for instance, adolescence is a time for personal development. As I had earlier mentioned, that when you're a teenager and when you are in the ages of 10 to 18, what ends up happening is that you're going through a developmental stage. There's 8 developmental stages, and one of the developmental stages is called the identity versus identity confusion stage. And what ends up happening there is that a child is being molded as they get older. They're starting to learn to understand, you know, how to understand reality. You know, what is life, and not just life, but who are they as human beings. So what ends up happening is that, but once they hit at age 10 or 11, they tend to go to middle school and then high school. And with that, you know, the child is not at home as much. With that, the child is interacting with different people more often. There's different influencers, who they hang out with, you know, who their friends are, you know, how are their teachers, how are the teachers gonna, you know, how are they gonna approach that child of yours in school. So there's a lot of changes that are happening at once for your child. So when that happens, you know, a child wants to learn to understand, you know, who they are as an individual. So even in today's world, a lot of families are having a difficulty in the idea that, you know what, as Muslims and as Afghans, there's an issue of, you know, how do we raise our kids? And for that, there's a lot of mosques that are starting to have Islamic schools, where parents are putting their kids to Islamic schools to make sure that their kids are raised in an Islamic manner, you know, according to their rules and their laws of the school. So once your child is, you know, is raised here in the States, you know, let's say in a public or a private school, it becomes very different. It becomes very different, as, you know, some parents are okay with how the child is raised. Some parents are not okay with how children are raised. But, you know, they are frustrated with their child. So what ends up happening is that a child can learn something new from a friend and come home and try it out. And the parent looks at a certain behavior and gets mad at a child for, why are you acting this certain way, or why are you now starting to, even the importance of questioning a certain situation becomes a problem at the household. But parents tend to not understand or realize that it's a different culture out there, you know. And then most importantly, sometimes when children, they ask questions, you know, that's a good thing. That means that your child can be a strong critical thinker. You know, that's their right, human right. But those are certain factors that, you know, parents tend to not understand. Well, why are they, you know, my kids are a certain way, or they were a certain way when they were here. Now when they go out, you know, I've seen some changes. Well, of course, there are going to be changes. You know, you shape up and you pick up to be somebody different than the way you are as parents. And that's normal, because, you know, as parents, you know, your father has one form of personality, the mother has a different personality, you know, the sibling has different personality. Every individual has different personality. The only similarity that you will see is very few. And what parents tend to neglect, and I will say that, is that if a child comes home, they are putting a face in for you. What I mean by that is that majority of the times, very few percentage of the children are, the way their parents or one of the parents are. Majority of the times, I mean, we're different people. No one's going to be the same. That's just part of reality. People, they think differently. They have different needs, different wants. So as parents, we tend to think that, our children are going to do what we want, or they should be a certain way. But they tend to forget that children are, putting a face inside the house. But once they're outside of the house, it's a whole different person being outside. They have a whole different personality. They hang out with different people. It's just a different scenario. But parents tend to neglect that. Again, adolescents will be exposed, like I said, to new things and will face greater challenges in everyday life. Important to keep influences in mind when making the decisions as well. So we always tell people, make sure that it's important to keep influences in mind when you are trying to make certain decisions in life. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and break it down and what I mean by that. So again, there's 6 steps of decision-making process. Okay, so there's 6 steps in making decision-making process. Number 1 is, what is the state of the situation? Again, let me give you a general situation for boys and girls. If you are in school and you have an exam coming up in 2 weeks, let's say by the end of the year, right? It's the holidays are here. We're gonna hit 2019, and I would say in about 7 days, 7-8 days. So you have a big exam coming up. So let's say that's a situational component of your life where you have an exam. So what are you gonna do? So number 2 is list the options. What can you do when you have a certain situation like that? You have an exam. Now, what are your options? So now you have different options. What can I do? Do I want an A, where I want to study? I want to fix a schedule where I'm studying maybe 2 or 3 times a day for this certain exam. Depending on your capability of how good or a fast learner you are, it varies. Sometimes a child can sit there and grab a paper and grab a book and say, what, I just need 1-2 hours to take a look at my questionnaire, exam questions, or my book to memorize certain materials to take my exam. But your options are basically, list your options. What is it? Do you want to study hard? Do you not want to study hard? Or do you not want to study at all? Those are your options. Weigh the possible outcomes. So if I study a lot, will there be the chances of me getting a A+, is it good? Is it bad? So you have to weigh your options. If I don't study today, and let's say the test is coming up, I don't study for the next 3 days and I study the next 2 days, am I going to get a better grade than I would if I start studying today? Make sure you have a sheet and you write down what is the benefits and what are the causes, or what is the negatives where you might not do good. So you have to write it down. Number 4 is consider your values. Again, as a person, even as young as we are, make sure you have to sit and tell yourself, am I a hardworking person? That's the goal. Am I a hardworking person? And I'm sure you guys, every single one of you that are there, you guys are hard workers. You guys have different talents, different ambitions, different goals, but you guys like to do certain things that you guys really enjoy. And when you do that, you have to consider the values behind it. Do I want to show my parents I'm a smart person? And this doesn't pertain to just grades. Also, if you're good at a certain sport, let's say there's a certain team that you're in, that you want to make your family proud, make sure consider those values of your own values, how important that is. If you do something good, first and foremost, am I gonna be happy first? Then you talk about, is my parents or my family, will they be happy? You have to take that into consideration. And then what you do is you make a decision and then you act on it. Once you make that certain decision, once you get to that point of time in your life, then you have to make a decision and you have to act on it. That means that you have to go ahead and take your exam. You have to go ahead, when you're at a football game or a soccer game, you're going to go ahead and do something that nobody knows of, but you have to take the risk, right? If I do this without telling everybody, or there's a certain move that I know which I don't want to share with my coach, but if I do it and if I succeed, it's going to be amazing. So you have to make that decision while you act on it. And then at the end, which is number 6, is evaluate the decision. You want to make sure that whatever decision you have made, was it just? Were you happy with it? Were you not happy with it? So that also falls and pertains to boys and girls when you guys meet each other in school. And what I mean by that is that, in today's world, in today's, classroom settings, you have boys and girls sitting in the same classroom. I know, you're going to come across somebody that you're going to like, and that's normal in terms of, as human beings, we get attracted to people. So now the important factor is, does it become a problem when you actually see an individual and you want to now go ahead and talk to them? If it is, for you, that is a problem or a situation for you. So now what you want to do is you want to know the parameters of, well, I am getting nervous when I see this person. I know, Islamically, there are certain rules and guidelines where I cannot cross those boundaries of, of interaction with, when I have with this individual. So what do I want to do? So number 1, do you go ahead and you talk to a friend of yours, where let's say a boy comes to you or a girl comes to you and says, hey, you want to come and hang out, just you and I? Now the decision comes here is that, do I go and hang out with them individually? And that's how you would want to list your items. You list the options, do yes or no. You weigh the possibilities. Would it be a good thing? Would it be a bad thing? For me to go and hang out with this person, knowing that you might feel uncomfortable, or you want to go and you might even want to go and talk to them. You have to consider your values as a human being. You have to tell yourself, well, is this the right thing? Knowing, you have to understand, is it a right thing for you to actually go and talk to a boy or a girl? Is it important for your family's value? You have to also take that into consideration. Again, you have to take it into consideration of, Islamic values. Will this be against or for Islam? And then when you do make that decision, when you act on it, then you have to evaluate. Or the second thing, the first thing is either you go and you talk to the individual, or what's better is that you can always talk to that person with a group of friends in a classroom setting. So that way you don't feel uncomfortable. If you're a boy or a girl, you can always go with your friends, be together, so it makes it easier, where you don't have to feel like, oh, you know what, this person wants to just talk to me alone and I don't feel comfortable. Well, guess what? You can go ahead and invite your friends and you go and talk to them. And now getting to making sexual decisions. Again, physical and emotional changes during adolescence can lead to confusion and concerns. As children, they get older, they tend to have importance to know the difference. Well, the important thing that the child or adolescents need to learn to understand is that even certain adults that, because parents do not talk about this situation. Give me 1 second, please. So we got a call. Let me take this call. Hello?
السلام عليكم.
بله السلام عليكم.
آقای حنیفی سلام علیکم. ببخشید که ما در پروگرام شما داخل شدم، شما از گپایتان نمانید.
نه بفرمایید. خوش شدم که تلفن کردن. بفرمایید.
من فضل مجددی خواستم که به شما و خانمتان تبریک بگویم.
بسیار زیاد سلام علیکم مجددی صاحب.
برنامه‌های جالب و بسیار برنامه‌هایی که جامعه افغانی به ضرورت دارند و از ضرورت‌های جامعه ماست. شما زحمت بکشین. با اینکه شما کار زیاد دارین خودتان به حیث متخصص، لکن میایین هفته یک بار مسافه طولانی در تلویزیون برنامه‌های بسیار مقبول تقدیم میکنید.
بسیار زیاد تشکر مجددی صاحب.
بسیار زیاد تشکر، موفق باشید و خداوند عمر شما را قبول و مقبول کنه.
آمین. بسیار زیاد تشکر.
که مثل شما یک جوان نازنین در جامعه افغانی خود دارین. این باعث افتخار من و تمام همکارای ماست و ما هر خدمت از طرف شما باشه. ما حاضر هستیم.
بسیار زیاد تشکر مجددی صاحب.
خدمت شما باشیم. اگر کسی زنگ نمیزنه این معنیش نیست که برنامه شما بیننده نداره.
بله.
برنامه شما در یوتیوب هم بسیار بیننده داره، در فیسبوک هم بسیار بیننده داره. لکن چون کلانسارای ما زبان انگلیسی یک ذره مشکل است.
بله.
به خاطر به زبان تلفن کمتر میشه. لکن شما یقین داشته باشین که جوانان بسیار استفاده میکنن. موفق باشین و پروگرام دوام بدین. و برای خواستین هم بسیار تشکر که زمینه را مساعد ساخته برای شما و برای ما و دیگرها.
آمین.
دیگر ما برای شما و خانمتان تبریک میگم که شکر که شما ایتا جوان نازنین هم در جامعه افغانی مثل شما داریم. بسیار تشکر.
قابل بسیار تشکر مجددی صاحب. سلام علیکم. اول تشکری خود از پیشتان میخوایم مجددی صاحب، تشکر که تلفن کردین در این پروگرام. از من ایتا است که ما خودم در پیشروی پروگرام اول گفته بودم که ایتا یک لفظای چیز که است خصوصی با اینمی در بخش درس ما که است در اینمی روانشناسی، او لفظات در دری و در پشتو تا بال چیز نشده، ترجمه نشده. بدون مو خاطر ما خودم هم نمیفهمم که چطور استفاده کنم. مگر از مرا خودم را چیز ما که است فوکس ما زیادتر کار ما است که اینمی نسل نو جوانای ما کار کنیم. بعضی خاطر که ما خودم هم که میبینم در اینمی جای کار ما بسیار وقت فامیلیا که میان اینمی پرابلم ها رو دارن که طفلای خود که خود در بین زن و شوهر، مادر و پدرایشان هم که هستن. به خاطر از اونمون ما که هستم زیادتر فوکس خود در انگلیسی میکنم که خدا کنه که از دیگه دوستای ما که در دری و پشتو که صحبت میکنه سرزوا خود سختی میان، مگر من کوشش میکنم که در این پروگرام ها بخیر دوستا را دعوت کنم که بیاین، یا خودم مثل مجددی صاحبم بتانه که بیاید در پروگرام ما شریک شون و ما اینمی برنامه اینمی دیسکشن تاپیک دیسکشن که است اینمی را ما در دری و پشتو بخیر گپ میزنیم. مگر بازم دوستا عزیزا این پروگرام های ما که هستن زیادتر در انگلیسی میکنم، بازی خاطر که نو نسل جوانای ما که هستن در انگلیسی زیادترشون صحبت میکنه و میخوایم که زیادتر فایده‌مندی به زواب پیش برن که بدانه که خود مادر پدر خود چطور وام کار کنه و مادر پدرشون هم چطور که اطفال خود کار کنن. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and go back into the importance of making certain situations, both physical and emotional changes of during adolescence time. So now the scenario is that the importance of knowing the differences between your feelings of sexual attraction and love. So remember, you do not have to act on sexual impulses. And what I mean by that, you have to first and foremost know the differences between sexual interaction and the love. And what I mean by that is that as human beings, you have to be very mindful that we tend to see one another, right? And we see other human beings and we get attracted to other human beings. And to say that's normal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that us as humans to be able to interact with one another's, to see one another's, but there's a limitation to that of how much you can see a certain person, or when to gaze your eyes when you are seeing an individual, or not just that, but even when you are interacting with somebody else. If I was to interact with a female, I need to make sure that my conversations do not go ahead and move away from the circle of where we it becomes disrespectful to the person, or my talking does not influence the other person by changing their feelings in their hearts. That's something that I cannot do, and as a person I need to be accountable for my own action. And for that, again, especially the young boys and girls, again, you will see other boys and other girls in school. So let me check this. Let me get this phone call. بله سلام علیکم.
بله آقای حنیف سلام علیکم.
بله سلام علیکم سیمی جان، چطور هستین؟ خوب؟
تشکر. من منتظر بودم که به همین صحبت‌های شما تمام شد. بعد از اون برای شما یک تلفن، یک تشکری و راستی واقعا قدردانی و اپریشیشن.
بسیار زیاد تشکر.
آغاز تلویزیون صدای-حق خدمت بزرگی را شروع کردین و او آوردن نسل جوان است به تلویزیون و به میدیا. و این که شما به زبان انگلیسی خودتان هم گفتین باید صحبت کنین، برای که نسل جوان ما علاقمند موضوعات تا زمان انگلیسی نباشه، اونا علاقمند نمیشن چون نمیفهمن لسانه.
بله بله.
و در ضمن ایره همه بیننده‌های ما الحمدلله میفهمن و من کسی که در اینجا شما را شاهد فعالیت‌هایتان هستم که اکثرا شما را در یعنی خود کمیونیتی افغانی و غیر افغانی در هر جایی که شما را دعوت میکنن برتان محفل میگیرن، جایا را کرا میگیرن و شما میرین صحبت‌هایتان که ضرورت جامعه صحبت میکنین ولی برای ما هر هفته شما میایین میره فری برای جامعه افغانی و وطندارایتان دارین ایده. خداوند شما را اجر دارین نصیبتان کنه.
آمین.
با هم که بسیار یعنی به اصطلاح افغان تازه داماد هستین و شما بسیار یعنی کار و زندگی آغاز زندگیتان است، ولی برکت باشه برای شما که در فکر جوانا هستین و موضوعاتی که شما بحث کردین در طول مثال واقعا ضرورت جامعه بوده و با مو که مجلس میگن یعنی مشکل اکثر والدین در تلفن کردن برای شما لسان است که نمیتونن برای شما تلفن کنن. در غیر از او یعنی واقعا خدمتی که شما کردین همین موضوعی را که امروز شما بحث میکنین یک موضوع بسیار جالب و در بخور جامعه است.
بله. و دیگه ای است سیمین جان که ما خودم با دوستام که هستن که میبینه صحیح است باز مشکل است، مگر حالا ما خودم با دوستام گفتیم حالا میگم که خیر باشه اگر شما خودتان که بسیار سخت است یعنی زبان دری و پشتو میتونن که خود اولادایشان هم که در انگلیسی گپ میزنن کدام اگر سوال داشته باشن در انگلیسی پرسان کنه که اونمو سوال از مادر پدر خود اگر بعضوا شرم هم است کدام سوال کردن نمیتونم ما جوابش بهشان میتونم، مگر یک کمیونیکیشن باید باشه بین جوانای ما که بگویه که برو خیر است اگر ما که مادر پدر خود کامفورتبل نیستم که درباره یک گپ شریک کنم که مادر پدر خود میتونم که یک دیگه کس بگویم. اونمو خاطر من در اینجا آمدیم که نمیره بتونم که نسل جوانای خود اگر خود مادر پدرام نمیکنه خیر است اگر اولادایشان اگر میخواد کدام سوال داشته باشن اگر کدام چیز پرسانی داشته باشن
این که تلفن نمیکنن بازم از این پدر مادر خود نمیخواین اکثر اولادا میگن I know باز حتما چیزایی که شما صحبت میکنین اونا برشان میرسه و برای اصلاح جامعه و برای تکلیفایی که دارن بر همگی یعنی باید همون قدر که اولادا و جوانا استفاده میکنن ما خود من یعنی بارها وقتی که برنامه شما شروع میشه میشینم و گوش میکنم موضوعات را که شما یعنی یاد میکنین و بسیاری وقت ما بسیار میخوایم کمی موضوعات را که شما در اینجا به زبان انگلیسی یاد کردین ما وقت داشته باشیم یک برنامه داشته باشیم کمی را به زبان دری و یا فارسی برای مردم بگویم برای اینکه بسیار ضرورت جامعه است. مسئله همین دپرشن که شما یاد کردین، مسئله همین خودکشی هایی که در جوانات چقدر زیاد است، مسئله امروز که شما یادآوری میکنین که چه قسم همین جوانا وقتی که در یک جای هستن دختر و بچه ها در مکتب هستن در جای دیگه هستن چه قسم میتونن خود کنترل کنن در مقابل امو وسوسه های شیطانی یا امو اترکشن و چیزایی که در واقع میشه چه قسم عمل کنن که خدای نخواستم کدام
کار خراب نکنه. بله
یک کار خطای از اینا سر بزنه. بسیار موضوع جالب و خوب هم یار شما صحبت میکنین و میشنیدم و چون جلسه تلفن که ما هم گفتیم باش که یک تشکری و از اینکه در این تلویزیون آمدین و شما پای هم در می روزا با روز یک شنبه که روز تفریح و ساتریتان است شما میاین اینجا خداوند اجرش نصیبتان کنه و
آمین.
You have to be patient because you're building your program and it takes time انشالله
وقت کار داره چیز خیر باشه. بسیار زیاد تشکر. سلام علیکم. بسیار زیاد تشکر از خودتون سیمین جان. So again friends and families, if you guys have anything that you guys want to discuss or share with me, especially for the youngsters, I know some of these topics can be or are hard to discuss or talk about within the household, but again feel safe to give me a call, to have these discussions at home with your parents. The thing what happens is with parents is that parents or your parents, the reason why they do not talk about this situation or they tell you know what, it's shameful to talk about these matters, is because they didn't grow up in a society or they didn't grow up in a family where they talked about matters, real what day-to-day matters. These situations do matter. These are important matters that we need to take into consideration, because if we don't, what do we end up doing? As kids or as youngsters, I know when I was young, when my parents didn't tell me a certain situation or a certain situation on how to deal with a certain factor, what I did was that I knew I couldn't go to them, because if I asked them, first and foremost, they would tell me it's not important to ask, it's not important to ask a certain question. So what ends up happening is that as kids, we tend to go and we try to seek the answers from different people, and that can be from our friends, our people in the community, or through online or through video games. I mean, not video games, through computers and through YouTube. So for that, I always encourage people and families, to always talk and have these discussions. Even for a child, it's important for you to talk to your parents. It's okay, I know they get mad, but you have to let them know, like, listen, I'm having a hard time. If you can help me solve this problem or help me understand a certain situation, can you please guide me who I can talk to? So there's a lot of other people that actually can come and talk to you about those scenarios. Again, sexual attraction, as I told you, again, it's normal. You are going to go ahead and look at things. This doesn't mean just human sexual interactions. You will have an actual just interactions, beautiful interactions with nature, with looking at buildings, but then you also have sexual desires, and those are things that chemically your body is unaware of how to process things, right? Because you feel very good when you see certain, if you're a boy, you see a female, a very beautiful female. If you're a girl, you see a young handsome man. You have desires. There's chemicals in your body that kind of makes you feel good, but you don't understand what those things are, and those are normal. I mean, those are normal chemicals that actually come to you. So now the actual matter is that how do you control them? So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to teach you on how to control those urges, and not just that, but your sexual impulses. Okay, so we're going to talk about those. So again, many teens act on sexual impulses out of curiosity. So what I mean by that is that there's times where, when you have those feelings, when you see other people in school, you see a boy and a girl, as we know in today's world, is they go out on a date, or they say, they're boyfriend and girlfriends. What ends up happening is that what we do is that we also are not fully understanding of the situation. We think it's fun. Our parents are not, our family is not being really understanding or supportive of what is going on. So what we do is, because there's so much influence outside, you have friends in school that actually peer pressure you to actually go ahead and go out with somebody, go ahead and try out your first kiss. Those are things you have to be very mindful of. You have to make sure that you do not cross those boundaries. These are acts that they're telling you to do, but guess what? These actions and things that you do, it's not going to be your friend's problem. Because tomorrow, God forbid, if something does happen to you, it will happen to you, because you are the person, doing these acts. It wasn't your friend. Your friends just kind of whispered to you to go ahead and try this out because it's fun, right? Or also the other thing is that discussion or discussing things to engage in sexual activities is the biggest and most important decision a teenager can take during your life when there's life implications. So what that means is that a lot of youngsters, once they get older, when they hit middle school, high school, when they do have these feelings with somebody else and they cannot control their feelings, they make decisions in life that will cause them prolonged life problems. And again, I will discuss and talk to you about during the presentation and what those problems are. Okay. So again, it is easier to make good judgments when you have a clear mind and not feeling pressure. So if you are in a situation where a boy or a girl comes to you, you are going to have feelings of, nervousness, uncertainty, because, you've never felt, pressured. Because even when you're by yourself, yes, you would like somebody, but you're not going to act on it. You don't want to go ahead and, do something. For instance, go ahead and hold a certain other child, a boy or a girl, and then you give them a kiss. In that time, your body is telling you, don't do it. And then you're saying, should I do it? Should I not do it? So what happens is that you come to a situation where the person tells you, go ahead and, give me a kiss. Or your friend says, no, go for it. This will be good for you. So you don't want to make, or you do not want to act on those decisions. What you want to do is come back, make sure that your mind is clear. There's no pressure. There's nobody around you that's talking to you or telling you to do this or do that. Okay? You have to make a checklist. As we said it earlier, you have to know the situation. 2, you have to be able to list your options. 3, you want to be able to make sure what are some of the the evaluations of evaluating the decisions. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And then you have consider your values, your family values. Is it important? Will this hurt me? Will this hurt my family? Those are important factors. And then you make that decision. If you do it, then you have to know that was that beneficial? Was that a good thing? At the end, you have to know, was that a good thing for me and for my family and for the people around me, or was it bad? Those are very important things that you have to take into consideration. And then remember, always it is easier to make decisions about your limits before you get involved in sexual activities. So again, before you make a certain decision, you come to a problem like this, always talk to an adult. You can talk to an adult, you can consult with other people. You can consult with other people. That can be your older brother, your older sisters, your parents. If they're open to it, talk to your parents. If your parents don't, make sure that you know somebody like your uncle, somebody in the community, in the masjids. You can talk to somebody and say, hey, this is how I feel. What do I do? If I don't go ahead and take this girl out or call her my girlfriend, people will call me names in school. Make sure you talk to an adult before you make certain decisions. So before we go ahead and go forward, I'm going to share with you guys a video by Mufti Mink. Again, through my shows I always show a video. So this is about how to avoid temptation to sin. Okay?
My question is related.
Your name?
My name is Hisham Jaffa. I'm a student in grade 12. You spoke about discipline throughout your talk and how it's very important to discipline yourself. And daily, in our daily life, we make lots of decisions. And in the Quran, Allah says, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبَّ الشَّهَوَاتِ, that the love for desire has been beautified for us. So when we come to make a decision between something we desire, but it's not very productive, and something that is more productive, and we incline towards the unproductive one, how do you develop a resolve to fight against yourself, to defeat your own desire and to do the right thing?
Jazakallah khair. What a brilliant question, and it is pertinent, and it is something that affects so many people by the will of Allah. All of us have challenges. There are so many beautifications of the dunya. As correctly you mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. So Islam has given us a package. That package comes more so holistically. When you understand the entire package, it makes it very easy to be able to be productive in a good way and make the correct decisions. I'd like to think, as a young man like yourself growing up, if you make sure your company is beautiful, choose company from people whom you think are similar to what you would like to be, or they have similar goals in life. And in that particular case, you will find it becoming so easy for you to make the right decisions. But when you mix with people who have so many different thoughts and ideas that are heading in the wrong direction, it becomes easier for you to make those wrong decisions. And this is why Islam gives importance to the right company. And that importance is underscored in the Quran and in the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the degree that every one of us, we would benefit from the positive company that we have without us realizing we've actually benefited. I give you a simple example. It's not easy to go for salah. My brother, not when you're enjoying a good burger from one of these Burger Kings and so on. Maybe I shouldn't mention the name Burger King because I myself would probably prefer something else. But to be honest with you, whatever it is, you're enjoying a good meal, you're having a bit of fun at the ice rink, and you're doing this, and come time for salah. If all your friends with you are concerned with the same concern, it becomes easy for you to read salah. 5 of them will get up and say, guys, there's the corner, we've already organized everything done, come, Allahu Akbar, you there. But if none of them are bothered about salah, and you're the only one in your heart, you say, hey, you know what, we were told to be productive, and salah is the cornerstone of productivity, and I want to be, but your friends say, come on, we're young, man, we'll read later on, there's something called qada, don't you know? I've heard youngsters say, well, there's qada, it's not bad. Qada is bad. Bad meaning to leave your salah to become qada is bad. It's a sin. Not to do your qada is an even bigger sin, but to leave it to become qada is something, it's a discussion on its own. So if you have good company, it facilitates making your own decision. Inna shaytana ma'al wahid وَهُوَ مِنَ الْإِثْنَيْنِ أَبْعَدْ. Shaitan is closer to you individually. You know, when you're alone and you're moving somewhere, it's easier for you to just divert to sin and so on. But when you're 4 or 5 guys and you're all good people, it's hard for you to actually, even if you want to look at something, you just say, hey, astaghfirullah, let me look down. One of the brothers told me about astaghfirullah today. Let's leave that inshallah for another time. So I hope and pray that we can have this holistic approach to resolving our problems, because if we have bad company and we're not bothered about the other rules of Islam, it's not going to be easy to just follow a few that we'd like to. You know, to be able to stay away from that which is haram becomes a little bit more difficult, because we have not taken the whole picture. Like a person who doesn't read salah at all, then they're making dua, Ya Allah, you know, keep me away from sin. But Allah says, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. You fulfill your salah, give it utmost importance. It will automatically make you productive in a way that you abstain from sin. Sin is very counterproductive. It actually comes up with a lot of baggage. May Allah protect us from it. Jazakallah khair, my beloved son.
Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters. So again, that was a video. As we go further into my program, I always like to incorporate certain materials from Islamic figures about the importance of important factors and matters. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. How Sheikh Mufti Mink even talked about the desire of your heart, and how you can also, what you have to do when there's desires, that you also, instead of just saying, you also have to make sure that you're implementing on positive outcomes. And not just that, but as I had mentioned, even he mentioned that make sure that you're in a group of good friends. Environment is very important. It either be outside, inside the house. There's times where even a certain child or brother or sister is, as people say, is trouble in the house. That's because maybe they don't have a strong or a good environment, or even within the household. So you have to take that into consideration. And as we tell kids and other folks, that it's important for you to make sure that who you hang out with will really determine and factor how you're gonna go ahead and move on in life. And not just that, but how you will become as a person as you get older. So you have to take that into consideration when you go further. So I've got 2 questions on Facebook as well by brother Shan Fazeli. Thank you for calling. He's actually very active on Facebook, but if you can, give me a call one day. I actually would like to talk to you as well. So you asked the question of why writing goals is important. So so I was doing a recap of my show for previous year, so I actually hit 1 year on Sada-E-Haq, alhamdulillah. So you're writing why writing goals is important. So reason why I talked about that matter was that I'm not going to go too much into it, but I actually had a show on it, is that it's important to write down goals. And reason why it's so important is that you want to make sure you have a good, stable, a very successful structure built from a very young age. So when you build that, what ends up happening as an adult, you tend to follow that structure pattern, and you make sure that whatever is priority, for instance, for your goals in life, you are able to work on them. If you don't, you're just kind of scattered. I talked about the importance of how as simple as you writing things down in your journal, how that will help you later in life in being a strong, constructive person, working in a CEO office. So those are different. That's a different topic of discussion that I had discussed. So if you like that topic, or if you want to learn more, or would you like me to talk more about it, I can put a recap of my video on it, or I can give you, I can talk more on it later. But again, the other question that you have asked is how parents should deal when their kids date openly, because everyone's parents have beliefs. And that is true. Ultimately, I cannot, talk about or give the suggestions of what a person or a child or a family should do, right? Because everybody is accountable for their own actions on the Day of Judgment. That's basically it. But again, how can we make it easier, or how do parents deal, or how should they deal? So that's one of the questions that you have asked, and for that, you have to make sure, and you have to look into consideration that yes, we live in a society that's very much different, but not to forget that even if we were back in Afghanistan, or if we were back, if somebody's back at their home country, it could be Africa, being Muslims, what ends up happening is that those things are still going to take take place. You'll still have a boy and a girl see each other, but it's just that people won't know because now they're open to discussing those matters. So my question here is that if a boy and a girl wants to see each other, if they are, they hit puberty, if they're they're in their stages of early adulthood, that's where they tend to become more embedded in getting to know each other. They want to explore more, about, other people, and they tend to like others. So if your child is starting to like somebody, make sure the most important thing is that child should also inform the parent. So that way the parent can actually go ahead and actually make sure that his child is protected by actually approaching the let's say the female's parents, or the parents approaches the guy's parent just to see how the person is. But then that way it gives both children and the youth the protection. So the parents know that, okay, they like each other, but if parents are involved, if everybody's sitting there, if they're having communal interaction that way, it's not gonna go to a point where, it becomes, as we call it, it doesn't the conversation doesn't go in a bad manner where, it becomes sexual, or it becomes more of a touching situation. It becomes more of a properly, there's two people sitting down, friends and families, there's a proper way of engaging one another, right? So the important thing is that the families need to also be able to learn and talk to each other's parents, and that's Islamically also. And I'll show you a video too, and what Sheikh Mink says, that if a boy and girl, they like each other, you have to go ahead and at least go and find out who your son or your daughter is talking to. You have to do that. If you just tell your kid, what, that's it, you're no longer my son, you're no longer part of the family, guess what, your son's going to go and do things on his own, or his daughter's going to go and do things on their own, and that's what ends up happening. So you want to be able to give them a chance. You also want to make sure you do it in a surrounding or in an environment of the Islamic law. So for that, it's not that hard. It's both parents need to sit down. They need to make sure that they're in communication. And the reason why they want to be in communication is that both parents are there to protect their own children. That's what it's for. It's for protection. So that's what parents need to do. And yes, parents have different beliefs and what they feel the child or the person should do. But again, at the end of the day, if a child hits a certain age where they ultimately in Islam, if they hit maturity level, they are accountable. Your parents can give them so much suggestion, what is good and what is bad. It's really up to the child and what decisions, or to the son or to the daughter, what decisions they make afterwards, because the parents are not accountable anymore. As they get older, you're accountable for your own actions, but when they're young, there's still accountability. But for that, both parents need to actually talk to each other. That parent need to actually go and see who that child is, that's seeing their children, and who their parents is, just to have a protection be set up to that. So again, thank you for your questions, Brother Sean. So now part 2. So we talked about decision making and how you make decision making. Now number 2 is going to be about abstinence. So definitions of abstinence. So there's 5 steps to help you stay abstinent. Okay, 5 steps. So the definition that I found, what it said was the conscious decision to avoid harmful behavior, including sexual activities before marriage. Okay, so it's for you to make or avoid this, harmful decisions or behaviors, where that includes anything that can be due to sexual activities. For boys and girls, again, you can, if you're in school, if you're talking to a boy, you're talking to a girl with your classmates, you're in a classroom setting, that's okay. But once you go ahead and you start touching the other gender, opposite gender, or even if it's the same gender, you have to be very appropriate, first and foremost, to yourself and to the others. And that being said, is touching too much, or you're starting to kiss each other too much, you should just be aware of it, that it's not always safe. It's not, and then again, it's not the best way to go ahead and interact with one another as well. And the same idea and conceptualization becomes when you're when you're adolescent or teenager or young adult, is that it talks about how you shouldn't be involved in any sexual activities before marriage. You cannot be interactive with others or be interactive in a sexual relationship with anybody before marriage as well. And then same way as we say, when a person go ahead and uses, or the same concept is that when you are in a relationship with somebody and you actually get physical with somebody, it's the same concept is used, like you using tobacco or alcohol or other drugs. It's haram. Same way. When somebody cannot smoke or somebody cannot drink alcohol, same way you cannot go ahead and be with a opposite gender really before marriage. If you are to like somebody, talk to your parents. And just let them know, hey, I think I like this person. That's all. Okay? So the other thing, and let's talk about the steps of how to stay abstinence. Number one is establish your own priorities. It's very important. Priorities are those things that are first and important for you. So make sure what is important for you. If you're a young person, if you're going to school, really, what are you going to school for? That's the main thing. Yes, when it comes to meeting your significant other in school, you tend to, when you like somebody, you tend to, there's been certain people that actually got married afterwards, but to say what is your priority when you go to school, that's your main thing. It's you're going there to learn, you're going there for yourself, you're going there to help develop yourself, you're going there to establish a career for yourself, you're going there, to make your family proud. This is a big list. When something else comes along, what happens is that you push everything down and you make that into your priority. So make sure it doesn't go that way. Your priority is still high up, okay? So make sure what are your priorities, whatever is important in your life, you make sure you tackle those first. Number two is set limits on how you are willing to express affection. When you are in a classroom setting, when you're with your friends, if you're talking to somebody, you can talk to them, but you have to make sure that you are not doing things that are inappropriate. Just because, you see a certain culture where people are, unmarried, starts grabbing each other, starts kissing each other, doesn't mean it is okay for you to do. Know your values, know your principles. It's very important. After marriage, that's your right. You can go ahead and express your feelings the way you want to, because it is okay. Beforehand, people say, or there's certain people that say, it's not, like it's okay to do, but if you are somebody that is really, somebody that really wants to practice, and wants to move forward wants to move forward in a Islamic principle and a protective principle, where you are protected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you, will protect your family, will protect your family name, will protect you from wrongdoing, is that if you are to do something in an Islamic manner, you will be protected and you will not be hurt. Yes, if you do anything outside of that, something that's against it, where you are going and meeting new people, you are talking to people one-on-one, if you are physically touching and holding and kissing and even having sexual relationship with other people, that will cause you a lot of issues, and it will be good for you here in this world and in the akhirah as well. So again, brothers and sisters, if you guys have any questions, please share them on Facebook. If not, you can always give me a call. So number 3 is going to be share your feelings and your thoughts with your friends. Okay, so when you're in a classroom, and if a boy comes up to you, if a girl comes up to you and says I like you, just be very clear with them. Even if you like him, you have to make sure you have to be able to talk to them and say, listen, great, the fact that they like you shows that you are somebody very important to them. Again, these are appearances. A person might not know you fully. Same thing with you. You might like somebody, but you have to share your feelings and say whatever is your priority of, Islamically too. That's number one on what is your priority. What does Islam say about being with a boy and being with a girl? You can still talk to an individual in a group setting, but if it becomes one-on-one, if it becomes a situation where the boy says, you know what, you never want to be with me, you don't want to have a good time with me, and that will start to make you, what ends up happening is you start to feel really badly, and you'll say, you know what, okay, let's do it. Don't ever fall into that. That's not important. Don't ever fall into that. Always state your priorities first. No, I cannot do this. I'm glad that you like me. Okay? You tell them, I'm glad that you like me. Even if you like them, you can express that. I like you too, but there are certain factors and certain criteria. For that, one, talk to my parents. You have to talk to my parents once the approval is given, because you have to do mashwara with your parents. Because at the end of the day, those are your parents. You have to make sure that your parents and your family is okay with who you will be seeing or talking to. And with that, your parents, what happens is that they'll get to know the boy, and they'll get to know the family of the boy. Same thing with the boy. You have to let your family know that if you like a girl, you have to make sure that the family is aware that, listen, my kids, if I like somebody, I make sure that I let my parents know so they can go ahead and have a form of protection for me. So tomorrow, if something does get, let's say if something goes wrong, somebody doesn't hold me accountable, and that could include the person that you're with. They can, the more they know about you, the more they can use those things about you. Again, if you guys don't tell your parents, there's no form of protection. When you don't have that protection, when you express your thoughts and your feelings to others, and you say, oh, you're my best friends, or I want to be with you, what ends up happening is that you tend to tell them everything about yourself, about your heart, about your family issues. So you start to trust them, right? So tomorrow when something happens, that trust becomes very difficult. That person can use that against you. So you don't ever want to do that. But if parents are involved and families involved, there's a form of protection where now if the guy or the boy says something bad, guess what? It's going to fall back on them too, because now there's a protection geared towards both of you. You guys are both in a circle now. So remember that. Number 4 is discuss your feelings with a trusted adult. So abstinence is, as I said earlier, it's also important to discuss these matters with an adult. Do it. Talk to your family. Talk to your parents. If you're closer to your mother, talk to your mother. If you're closer to your father, talk to your father. If you're closer to your siblings, talk to your siblings. If not, talk to somebody in the community. It can be somebody for instance, anybody that's in an Islamic surrounding of unknowing. What is your principle and what is your family's principle Islamically. Especially for our younger generation. So they can help you better, assist you and help better guide you as well. Again, number 5 is steer clear of high pressure situations. Make sure that you're trying to avoid putting yourself in a situation where you're feeling like you're under pressure. Don't ever do that. Relax, calm. It's not the end of the world. Trust me, nothing's going to happen. If one doesn't work out, or let's say I know usually the situation of this person has asked me to go out with them. Listen, no, don't fall into that. There's millions of people, better people that are out there. You can do it in the right way when you have a clear mind. Usually when people meet, there's a lot of high emotions. So I hear people that come to therapy from adults that come to therapy. They told me that when we first met, we had so much love. The love was strong. There was so much love, but now the love decreased. What they tend to not understand that wasn't love, actually. That was their emotions that took place. So the emotions are high. The emotions are high, and then over time, back then the reason why the emotions are high is because you're feeling good. You're releasing good chemicals. A lot of dopamine is going to your brain. You're releasing a lot of dopamine. So the emotional side of your love is up in the air, as we say. But eventually you hit reality where you actually get to know the person and things go down. Your love has always been that way. Your love wasn't high. It was your emotions that was always high, and it falls down. Love, actually, over the years, it builds and it goes up. your love was always there, and it was very, and it's when you first get married, and once first you get to know somebody, your love level is this small. So don't say, you know, your love level is this high and then now it's small. No, your love level is always small. Over the years, every year it either grows or it just stays flat, or it doesn't go anywhere, or it just gets worse. That's all. It's your emotions. Remember, emotions, your feelings of, you know, expressing. Love is something very different. Love is being committed in a relationship where you're doing things for yourself, for your family, as a team. That's very different than actually saying that, oh, my feelings this. It's a totally different thing, guys. If you're currently sexually active, reevaluate your decision. Again, if you're somebody, you know, for those brothers and sisters who are, you know, young in high school, college years, you know, even outside of college years, if you're a fully adult, you know best, really depending on, you know, be very safe in terms of if you are still having sexual activities with your partner, make sure you evaluate your decisions, because those decisions could hurt you, and you have to make into consideration and decide, is that the life, or is this the life you want to have for your child as well, or do you want your child to grow at a certain in a certain environment of, you know, knowing that your environment is probably toxic. So make sure that you reevaluate it. So again, we will have a second video that I like to share with you guys. It's called the Golden Rule Before Marriage. So please enjoy it. When you come back, we'll discuss more.
The golden rule. My brothers and sisters, I found this a lot with some of those, you know, younger people who interact either at the workplace or at the universities with a person of the opposite sex. Before you donate your heart to them, get your folks involved. Before you donate your heart to someone, get your folks involved. What does that mean? Subhanallah. Let me explain. You see, the mind and the heart are the most powerful organs that you have. The minute you give someone control of those two, they can damage you, destroy you, and really break you to pieces, shredded. So be careful, be very careful. The heart and the mind, you don't give them to anyone besides Allah. Allah should hold that, and that's it. If a relationship is within what Allah wants, then inshallah you will be happy. Within what Allah wants, you can give it. But there are young people at the age of 14, 16, 20, they've donated their hearts to someone, and they know that they're going to have a real uphill struggle with their folks. Rather, before you gave that heart, you should have at least got your folks involved, or you should have had your plan in place. You don't give the heart until you get the marriage done. Because I know of a lot of predators. A lot. When I say a lot, I mean in their thousands. They will come and say, I love you. And at the same time, they're saying it to another 20 people. And then they say, I love you. I adore you. I miss you, etc. And what happens? We, our emotional selves, we don't get those statements at home. We don't get them at home. So when we hear it for the first time from someone, something happened. Bing! You know, mashallah, tabarakallah. And you start thinking, wow, wow. And then they say it again, wow. And then you start pouring your heart out and giving them details about your life. All this is wrong because you're not supposed to donate all of that before you get your folks involved. So it's a mistake, because now they can hold you at ransom completely. You've given them too much detail of your life to let go, and they were busy doing it with so many others. It has happened. And you're busy fighting. No, the guy is dedicated and you don't know. And vice versa. It's happening the other way around as well. So you need to make sure that you don't just fall prey to a statement or two.
Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I hope that was informative and educational video as well. Again, those videos are always good to, you know, put a Islamic perspective from a sheikh, from an alim, from a scholar of deen, to give you guys a better perspective of, you know, the importance of, you know, what Islam also says about relationships, and talks about desires, and, you know, for youngsters to not get close to each other, or close enough where they fall into, you know, negativity, or fall into a pattern of, you know, regretment later in life, where they'll regret certain decisions they make. And again, that comes with, lack of knowledge. It becomes in a situation where there's not an open discussion about these form of situations. And what I've noticed is that what's been very successful is that I do therapy, and majority of our clients are, Muslims. So when I get there, families that come to us for counseling sessions, the moment I open the door or I see, how even the department is compared to the whole agency, I can see, everybody just very calm. If somebody talks, I can see some of the staff go like, shh. And, and I tell myself, why is it a hard issue, or why is it a hard matter, right? Because a family, even though that the family has not even come to a counseling session yet, they're not in the room where they do their private talks, but even when a person comes just to say hi, they're like, shh, make sure that this person does not exist. So I find it a little funny because, when I see other people at different agencies, when they go for counseling, they'll go to the therapist, before they even start the session, they'll come, you'll see the client come in, hey, how's it going, Bob? Good. How was your day? I did this, I did that, but then they'll say, hey, I need a counseling session today because I want to talk about, a personal matter. And then they go and they talk. Perfect. But with our community, this has become a big barrier where, again, a lot of our youth are, they don't have the right information. When they do have the right information, family is not there to, what family does is they can actually shame him. What are you listening to? Why are you listening to this? These are important matters, brothers and sisters. You have to take into consideration because your children, they need to know, because these are part of day-to-day life. This is not a once in a lifetime situation where the child doesn't need to know. No, this is a day-to-day lifetime situation. Your family or your children will come across these situations and in these matters, so you have to be able to discuss it with them. If you don't, again, they will go get it from somebody else, and then when they have the wrong information and they go ahead and they act on those wrong information, you get mad for why he or she does that, and you tend to forget that it wasn't their fault. It was really your fault for not explaining it to them. Again, Brother Sean has another question that he asked on Facebook regarding, in the moment, when the boy and the girl are together, it becomes very hard, it becomes very hard to control their selves. And the reason why that is because it becomes very difficult for them to control their thoughts and behaviors. The fact that there's a lot of emotions. So again, there's no control because they're not in the state of mind of making rational decisions. First of all, they're young, right? So they're, sometimes when they come across a situation, when I tell people, is that they come in a situation where a guy or a girl approaches them. They've never had that form of interaction with anybody. The family doesn't sit and talk to the children like, hey, you eventually, as you get older, let me get this phone call, sorry. And I'll come back to your thing. Question. Hello?
Hi, is this the Wally Show?
Yes, this is the Wally Show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm calling in to just say that I wanted to thank you for presenting on this topic because it's a topic that is very taboo in our community.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I really appreciate that, you have the courage and the professionality to come out and talk about it. And I wanted to ask you two questions. The first one is, how important is the topic of abstinence? Who should engage in such conversations? And the second question is, why do our families don't really talk about this topic to their children?
Okay. Thank you for the questions. I will answer your questions. Actually, one of the questions is also aligned with one of my other viewer that actually asked a question through Facebook. I will answer it, but I just wanted to ask you, because you asked, you did call. I wanted to find out how important is it to discuss these form of topics, because I will answer your questions on your question on how important it is of talking about it, but I want to know as a Muslim, as an Afghan, how important is it for me to discuss this especially with the Afghan community as well, because I know we do not talk about this form of topic because of that taboo, right? It's forbidden. Nobody talks about it.
Yes. I think it's really, really important to talk about it just because, we should let our children go out there with the proper knowledge and the proper information. That way they are safer instead of learning this information from their peers or other people in the environment who may give them the wrong information and may mislead them. But it just seems to me that a lot of parents and families are afraid to talk about this topic because they're afraid that it might persuade their children to go out and act in ways that are, haram and prohibited in Islam and in our culture as well. So I do think it's extremely important to talk about this topic because if us as parents do not provide this information, then the wrong information is going to get out there for our kids.
Yeah, definitely it is. Well, again, thank you so much for calling. I will answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Again, thank you so much for the call. I do appreciate the fact that you did call. Again, it's the number one step is that how important is the discussion of abstinence? It's just a simple answer is that it's important as you making a call. That's how important it is. I see people making calls, or if this was a different topic or a matter where people just want to come and talk and express their feelings about it. If with other scenario, if this was a different platform, then people would discuss, right? But when it comes to behavioral health and personal matters, a lot of people do not talk about it is because they have a fear. They have a fear, from the very beginning, in countries or in our own home back countries, because the government wasn't fully structurally strong enough to provide that safety or provide that trust to their own people. And what happens is that it's because of bad ethics. What ends up happening is that when somebody shares, growing up, in Afghanistan, if I was to tell my personal story to a relative or a family, and if something went bad, that person will go ahead and use that against me. So what happens is that in back home, there was bad ethics in terms that people weren't, understanding the fact that we have professionals that can help you now here in the States. So when you come in for counseling services, or when you come in to help, to seek help, or when we're out there to teach people about certain matters, is that we always let them know that, listen, first and foremost, we make sure that everything is kept confidential. With confidentiality, we cannot talk about your personal issue. We cannot tell people who you are, what is the problem taking place, because tomorrow you have the right to go and put me in prison and so eventually, sue me as well. So for that, it becomes a barrier. Now, and when you say how important is it, I think it's very important, especially with the discussion of abstinence. And where does it start? It starts in the home. Parents need to start talking about this matter. I get it with parents. I understand, for those that can understand English, and then for parents, that don't understand English, the youngsters that are there, the children and the kids and the grandkids, please teach, tell your parents as well that it's not a bad thing, because what I'm going to say is that what ended up happening, and it has happened in my family in generation, is that parents do not get the talk of abstinence. They do not get the talk of sex ed in their households. It's a taboo topic. And we're not talking about, go out and announce it to the world that, I talk to my kids about this. No. The important factor is that you are to talk to your own child about the importance of what happens as they get older. When they get older, you are to talk to them. I'm about to answer your question too, Brother Shan. When white children have, at that point they don't have control. This is where parents come in, where they have to tell their kids, as they get older, when they're 7, 8, they have to talk to them and sit down and say, listen, as you get older, you're going to start to have emotions. You're going to start to have feelings that you cannot control. Those feelings are going to ask you to do certain things, without having control or under peer pressure. And you're probably telling yourself, is it okay to do this? Is it not okay to do this? Because you've never come across that situation. When we come across a certain situation in our lives, our brain freezes. It puzzles, and we kind of go into a moment of being scared. We don't know what to do, and we make decisions based off other people's judgments or peer pressure. Not just that, we make decisions based on looking at people doing something, and then we say, you know what, if I do this, this is okay because everybody else is doing it. No, it's not. Every person is different. Maybe it's okay for them, it's probably not okay for us, or it's not okay for me personally. So you have to take that into consideration, and parents, that's how you need to talk to your children. Because you have to talk to them from a very young age, and you have to teach them that as you get older, you're going to have certain emotions in your body that's going to allow you or make you think a certain way or make you want to do things a certain way. When you have that, when you come to that point, you come to me and you talk to me. You come talk to me and I tell you what to do or how to go about it. That's it. Simple. Simple as that. So let's go ahead and talk about part 3 now. And I hope that answered your guys' question. Part 3 is the refusal skills. Again, as we went over the scenarios, where part 3, there's 4 parts to it, okay? As I mentioned earlier, part 1 is decision making, as we went over. Second is abstinence. Third is currently we're going to refusal skills. And then from there, we're going to go into consequences of sexual activities. But again, part 3 is the refusal skills and what that is. So what you want to do is that you want to have a clear communication with the person that's with you, or even with your partner or your friends, your classmates, to make sure that they understand that, you know, there needs to be a stop. There needs to be a boundary. There needs to be a line that says, you are my friend, you're my classmate, you and I can sit together, we can do our homework together, we can talk together, but the moment you talk about me, that is a no. You know, when you talk about, certain situation that come, that where he or she wants you to talk about them, or they want to go ahead and spend time with you alone, that's where you need to be more clear in telling them, you know what, no, that's a no. You can be verbal or you can be non-verbal when you want to send that message, okay? Clearly body language also speaks a lot. Again, the important factor here becomes for you guys, and for all of us, this is also for adults. There's adults that make irrational decisions based off of emotions, and coping mechanisms, as we call it, and that leads to bad consequences. So again, this is not just for the children, this is not for the adolescents or for the young adults, this is also for adults who are like in their 30s as well and 40s. They make rational decisions too, because as human beings, sometimes we make mistakes, and that's okay. But again, if you are listening to this, this gives you a better platform to understand on how to move forward, okay? Main important thing is to have self-control. That's always very important. When you have self-control, you can think better. You can, clearly, have mashwara. Talk to, your elders, your parents, again, your other people in the community, your siblings. If you're an adult, you talk to family members, community members, religious leaders to see what is best options, and then you have to weigh the pros and cons, right? As we talked about it. A person's ability to use responsibility to override emotions is very important. Again, when you are in a stage of seeing somebody where there's attraction for you, when you're young, you have feelings. You have feelings. Either you have good feelings or you have bad feelings. When you like somebody, you have good feeling. You're happy. So when you are happy, sorry, I'm talking like I'm talking to a group of children right now, because that's how I talk. But when you're happy, what you want to do is you want to make sure that even though when you're happy, that you know what you're happy about, and you have self-control. As we talked about it, when you do meet somebody, you're gonna feel really good, but it's okay because you're gonna have those feelings. But make sure you do not act upon those feelings. Okay? You can always talk, you can see, but you cannot act when it comes to touching somebody or kissing somebody. You cannot do that. You always want to talk to an adult before you take that step. No conflicting actions. Okay. And now part 4, lastly, we have 20 minutes left, so if you guys have more questions, anything you guys want to discuss, please give me a call, or you can just message me on Facebook. I can answer your questions. But we are actually coming closer to an end to our show, and then the last thing that I'm going to discuss about is the consequences of sexual activities. And what does that look like? So again, negative consequences of sexual activities can lead to unplanned pregnancy. That means that, you know, you are a young person, you're in high school, you're in middle school, you're in college, you get pregnant. Now imagine you get pregnant, life is not going to be easy for you. You know, it's not going to be easy for you because now you have a human being inside your body that you have to take care of and that you have to plan out for the rest of your life. You know, you cannot go and do certain tasks, or you cannot go ahead and complete a certain task or a goal that you wanted to do at this time of at a certain point of time in your lifetime. You cannot do that anymore because now it's going to take you a longer time. Again, unplanned pregnancy, you can get pregnant. Sexual transmitted diseases, like for instance, like STDs, those are, you know, illnesses that you do not want to have. Very bad illnesses, you know, that can cause death. You know, you can die because of that. Loss of self-respect. You know, people will not look at you the way they used to, you know, because you don't have that protection. Remember what I told you in the beginning, you need to have that protection. If you have that protection, people cannot talk to you a certain way because they know, the family knows, they know that, you know, if the family is involved, your parents know, everybody's protected. If you don't, people will talk. People will talk, and you will lose self-respect amongst the people, and you will lose self-respect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And again, negative effects on social relationship. It also plays a big factor with your relationship to your parents. Your parents will not have the same relationship with you going forward. Your siblings will not have that form of relationship with you going forward. And either, you know, that same thing happens. And that's just, you know, part of reality, that's how it goes on. Again, number one, unplanned pregnancy. You know, it complicates adolescents' life. And how do they do that? Well, 86% of teen pregnancy are unplanned. Now imagine that 86% of teen pregnancy is unplanned. Nobody sits there and says, you know what, I'm going to plan to have a child. Because as teenagers, when you're young, you're not thinking of you know, having kids. You are really thinking of having a good time, you know, and enjoying yourself. And in doing that, you don't know what actions you're going to take. Are you going to be taking actions that are rational? Again, emotions are very high. This is not the phase of love, it's a phase of emotions. You have to understand that's different. Emotions go up and down. Love will not. Love will also go up and down, but it takes time. Over time, love will either go up or either stay the same, or it will just go down. So you have to remember those are important factors. Giving birth at a young age increases health risks for both the mother and the child. So if you're very young and you have a child, you know, that can cause issues and problems for you, both physically and mentally. What I mean by that is that you can have, your body will hurt. You know, you'll have problems later on in life. You know, mentally you will not be ready. You will not be able to take care of that child, because you also have growing up to do. You also need to go and explore life. You also need to go ahead and enjoy life. When the moment you have, you know, a child, your life becomes, you know, dedicated to that child, you know, to help them get older, raise that child, and most of your whole time in your life actually gets spent on those kids, not on your own, on yourself, and on your life. And again, it limits your teen future. Again, it limits it where you don't have many options of going to college. You won't have the chances of going to university. You won't have the chances of even working full time. You might want to take that into consideration, even traveling to different places, even go ahead and, you know, getting a job so you can, you know, spend on yourself and enjoy, and you spend time with your family, with your parents. You're not going to get that. what ends up happening is your whole life's going to then be focused with the child. So you have to be very important. Those are things that we have to plan out. Again, teens are not ready for parenthood, and I say that again. And please have that discussion with your children as well. So before we go on, I have another video that I like to share with you guys, and then when you come back, we'll discuss more.
When I was 16 years old, that was when I first had my first boyfriend. His name was Aiden. So I met Aiden in school, and we were assigned to be chemistry lab partners, and we just hit it off. And I thought he was a pretty great guy based on everything we talked about, and we hung around a lot. But sometimes I felt like our relationship was moving a little too fast for me. I came from a very strict Catholic family, so we weren't allowed to do anything intimate or serious until after marriage, which Aiden didn't agree with. Aiden always pressured me to do things I didn't want to. One time we were just sitting around watching TV on my bed while my parents were at work. And I asked him, "Hey, do you want something to eat or drink? Or maybe we could watch another movie because this one's kind of boring." Aiden kind of took the remote and he turned the TV off, and he started telling me things that I didn't want to hear, and I just asked him, "Please stop, I'm not ready to do this." Aiden got kind of mad, and he said he would leave me if I didn't do what he wanted me to do. So I was faced with a choice that I would regret for the rest of my life. I ended up doing something that I regret with him. Fast forward over a month and a half later maybe, I started feeling different. I was craving a lot of different foods that I usually wouldn't eat, and then I always needed to pee, and sometimes I feel kind of nauseous. And I remember that when I started getting nauseous and more nauseous, I started throwing up every day, I told my best friend, Lily, and she looked at me and she said, "Have you done anything lately?" And I asked, "What do you mean?" And then I remembered that night. I was like, yes I did. And we went to the pharmacy and we got a pregnancy test, and I took the test. It came positive, and I remember when it came positive, Lily just held me there as I cried. I went through a lot after that day. I was kicked out of my house because I was pregnant. But I learned quite a lesson that you should never be taken advantage of. You should never be pressured in doing anything you don't want to. Today I have my daughter. She is 3 years old, and I don't regret having her, but I do regret having her at the time I did. It was much more difficult for me. And right now, I am working to get back to school. And always remember, don't do things unless you want to.
Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters. I hope you guys like it's a little animated video, which I couldn't find anything more. That was probably the closest video that I was able to find to help you understand, how, abstinence was not used in this perspective. If it was, again, a lot of the difficulty and the challenges will come for or towards, as they showed in the video, was towards a female. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, they didn't show the guy being in the picture. But you have to take into consideration, even if you're a boy, if you act in a way where, you get somebody else pregnant or a female pregnant, your right is to be with that, to take care of that child as well. So I know you didn't see that here, but eventually that is also part of it. So we're going to move on and talk about what else aside from pregnancy we can that has a consequence when you have sexual activities. There's sexually transmitted diseases, as I'd stated earlier, like STD, spreading from person to person through sexual contact, and that's a form of a disease that requires medical care. It's very painful, and they have. I couldn't find a video fully on it because some of the videos that they showed was very graphic, so I wasn't able to find. But some of the pictures, if you go ahead and put STD, you'll be able to see images that are very disturbing. But those are a form of a disease that you get, and eventually you need a lot of treatment and medication for it. If you don't, then you can die of it. So now let's talk about the mental and the social aspect of abstinence. There's, again, like I said, there's loss of self-respect. You'll be not seen the same as you did when you were first yourself, in terms of you had your priorities straight, and you talked to your family whenever the concern, when there was a situation. You didn't hide things from your family. The moment you hide things and you do something behind your family's back, the thing, when you do something to make others happy, it becomes a problem where you will lose that self-respect. It diminishes self-image. You will no longer be able to see yourself as the same ever again. And people do change. I see a lot of cases of people that where they get rejected from family, which family, in these situations, instead of helping their kids and making sure that things work out for their children and their grandchildren, they actually kick them out, or they'll even make it worse for the children, because first of all, they're going through a traumatic experience. There's adults that cannot handle children. Now imagine a child or a teenager handling a child. It's even worse. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that we're there to support our kids. And then what I've seen is that over time, there's been times where families do not support their kids, and their kids, end up even in worse matters possible, and then they take ownership and being very happy because now they're happy and not needing support from their families, and and the belief system that is created there. And then again, there's tensions between the boy and the girl. There'll be a problem, because you guys are still children, you guys are still young, you guys are not knowledgeable enough to understand of how to work or how to have a child, or what to do in a matter of to be safe around each other. Again, you can be in a surrounding, you can be in in school, surrounding with people, but the moment the conversation goes very intimate, the boy talks about you personally, you talk about or a girl talks to you personally, and then the moment you feel that tickle, that that happy feeling, make sure you understand that now I gotta back up, and I have to be mindful of that. Again, sexual activities may lead to unshared feelings, emotions, attachments, and other dilemmas as well. And then again, you gotta wait, brothers and sisters, as we say, wait till marriage to experience, with having sexual intercourse or any sexual relationships. Practice abstinence. It's a task, it's a mission, it's not easy. But again, you are doing it to protect yourself, you're doing it to protect your family, and you're doing it to protect your future. So remember, it's very important to have abstinence. In today's world, there's so many things going on. We want to try out different things. We want to do things that are, cool. But again, it won't be cool once you, once you have, let's say, when you have kids, or when you have some form of a disease. It becomes more of a very harsh reality. Again, you want to be able to grow up in your own age. You don't want to jump from teenage years to adulthood right away. You don't want to do that. You want to enjoy your life with your family, with yourself, priorities, family, school. Make sure you're constantly remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're going to your Friday family night events at the mosques. Be involved in the community. Surround yourself with positive community members. And then now, actually, that is it for today's show. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I hope it was good and it was educational. But what we're gonna do is I am gonna actually discuss and I'm gonna put on a video now for our parents. I know there's a twist also that, you know, this program is for children, but I also want to come in and talk to parents as well. When teenagers, you know, when it comes time to, you know, even teenagers, once you become a teen, once you're a young adult, you know, what I've noticed is a lot of family members, a lot of parents are very against teens, you know, even seeing as others who are of different genders. You know, if it's a boy who comes to their parents like, hey, I like this girl, the parent says, no, you cannot go see them again, or you cannot marry them, or so on. But that becomes a problem. But this is a situation where, again, it's going to be a video by Mufti Mink. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed today's topic. We will discuss, more topics every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you guys have any topics that you'd like me to cover, please give me a call. You can call the number. You can let me know, or you can join me on Facebook, and you can always message me regarding what topics you'd like me to cover. But for that was today's show. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I hope this was an educational show.